Sadly, my infinite basil succession, which was cuttings from cuttings from cuttings of basil, which I was growing on my windowsill for over a year, has now come to an end. However, can we use this pack of cut herbs, Thai basil, to start a new basil plant? So let's have a look and see what we get in this pack. Obviously these herbs have been cut at least a few days ago, but I'm hoping that they will still be fresh enough that we can use them as viable cuttings. So I'm going to pick out what I think is the kind of freshest, most lively looking pieces. Let's go for those 4. The rest of that I will use in some recipe or other. These 4 pieces, I'm just going to trim them up, remove any superfluous leaves, and we'll try and root them in water. I'm just going to trim them up, trim off the bottom of the stalk because that might actually be dead, and remove any lower leaves. Not too many leaves because we've got to leave it some capacity to process light. So a bit of foil over the top of a little pot of water. The foil just helps to keep the plants upright, stops the water from evaporating, and assuming they do root, it can just be torn away without damaging the root systems. Right, so those 4 cuttings are in water. Going to put them on the windowsill, and hopefully in a week or 2 they will have rooted. About a week later, and everything's doing really well. In fact, these cuttings have grown a bit since they were put in here, and a little bit more of an untidy plant, I find, than regular basil, but we can just see little roots starting to appear. So you can just see there little rootlets starting to appear, which of course should surprise nobody because these are just cuttings. I suppose the only thing we were really testing here was not whether basil plants will root in water, but rather whether cuttings or cut pieces in a plastic bag in a chiller in a supermarket have got enough viability to be used as cuttings and root and become viable plants. And it looks like the answer in this particular case is yes. And I suppose that's fairly obvious because they were alive. If they weren't alive, they'd have either been dried or rotting. But there you go, you can root basil from cut pieces in bags from a supermarket. This area here, this little bit of woodland, is suffering from ash dieback disease, and look, you can really see how bad those ash trees are in comparison to all the other trees which are now in full leaf. All these dead trees through here, or dying trees, are ash trees that have been sadly attacked by ash dieback. I don't think there's anything that actually can be done about that other than just felling the dead trees to stop them being a hazard to people as they rot and stand. I'm not sure the disease can actually be controlled. There's the wild strawberry flowers down there. A little bit too early in the season to find wild strawberries. Sometime in June we should be able to find wild strawberries around here. Now I'm just going to have a look in here because there's a whole bunch of felled trees here, and I'm thinking on the stumps we might find dryad saddle fungus. Just keep my eyes open for that. So this woodland will have to recover by the growth of other species that aren't ash, I think. So we've got hazel in here, there's a birch, silver birch, there'll be some oak, there's a hawthorn. That's a beech tree. So yeah, the ash, unfortunately, especially the mature ones, which suffer very badly with it. It's the larger trees that tend to get most attacked. Ash may continue to thrive here as a species because the younger trees seem to be able to survive it. It's only really when they get mature that they succumb to ash dieback. So yeah, there's yew trees in there as well. There's a sycamore. There's holly. So there is still a diversity of tree species here. It just won't include so much ash. Burdock here. And yeah, that's a sycamore, which is not to be confused with the plane tree. This is a species of maple, really. Oh, there's a specimen of dryad saddle, so that's very too far gone to pick, but there we go, that's dryad saddle fungus there. If we find some younger specimens of that somewhere, they are good to eat. That one definitely isn't. So the problem with this obviously is these other trees, so we've got a sycamore there on the right and an oak there on the left. These have all grown up together with lots of ash trees. The ash trees have died and had to be cut down, but it leaves these specimens rather exposed to the elements. So strong winds are now going to affect these trees more than they would if they were part of a canopy. So it might well be that some of the other species of trees will suffer as well. I think this will probably continue to be woodland, but it will probably have to go through some changes. Very big burdock plant there, look at that. Look at the size of those leaves. Shoe for scale. Jenny's just pointed out there's young ash trees here, and they'll grow for a bit. Young sycamore there, hazel, another sycamore down there. So the ash trees will survive as a species. They just won't be the dominant tree in the woodland. Finally at the bottom of the hill. So we've walked a long way down. We're at Old Winchester Hill, by the way, in the South Downs, which is actually not that close to Winchester. We've come down from the top, walked all the way down the steep hill, which is back over that way somewhere. But unfortunately that means now it's all uphill from here. Crows are talking about us, I think. So long trek back up the hill over there. This bit's fairly level, only kind of gently goes uphill. When we get to that corner up there, it's just a long drag up back to the top of the hill. We will stop and identify a few plants along the way here, because chalk downland has got lots and lots of interesting plants. So here we've got the seed pods of cowslips. The flowers are finished now. Got a big patch of speedwell there. Buttercups obviously all still blooming. They'll continue throughout the summer. I think that might be, yeah, this is bird's foot trefoil here, which is a pea family flower. Now I did, before we set out, just as we left the car park, I saw a common lizard skitter across the path. Didn't get the camera out in time to see it. I don't normally like just telling you on camera about the things that I wasn't able to film for you, but it was quite exciting. I really like lizards. If we're lucky, we'll get one later in this video. I'll see if I can see one. We're quite likely to encounter one basking on the bare chalk of the path here, out in the sunshine. So if I see one, I'll stand still until I get the camera booted up. I've brought my foraging basket today, but I'm not intending to forage from this area because this is kind of chalk grassland. This is protected and a bit special. But there are also, there's thyme here, thyme and marjoram, 2 aromatic herbs useful in the kitchen. I won't pick them from here though. So that's marjoram there, growing up. And in a moment I'll find some thyme. Thyme I think is probably not flowering very much yet, but I'm pretty sure there's some of it somewhere in amongst this lot here. That might be thyme there. It might not be. That definitely is there. There we go, that's common thyme there. Oh, a little blue butterfly there, chalk hill blue or similar. Quite a few of them about, actually. It's nice to see. That's a brimstone. One of the first butterflies you see in the spring, actually. One of the first to emerge in the springtime. They don't sound like rooks, do they? That's more like a rook. I don't know. Yeah. Maybe somebody watching can tell me which corvids we're listening to there. Another brimstone butterfly there. Quite a large corvid, that one, with swept back wings. The ends, tips of the wings were kind of swept back a little bit. I don't know. Well, sadly we didn't find a lizard for you to see. Perhaps in a future video I'll come out and actually look for reptiles specifically. We don't have very many reptiles natively in this country, in the UK. A few lizards, a couple of snakes, one venomous snake, the adder, which we're very unlikely to see today, although this is the kind of place you might find one. But you're just generally very unlikely to encounter them. They hear you coming and they're quite shy and they'll hide. So despite being a venomous snake, they're really nothing to worry about in terms of risk to humans, unless you go blundering through undergrowth and take one by surprise. And let's not forget, here's a nice little plant, always a pleasure to see. The common daisy, Bellis perennis. Very, very tiny specimens here, because this grassland is very aggressively grazed, not only by sheep, but by rabbits. There's evidence of the rabbits. And there, that's a little rabbit latrine right there. Up on the end of the hill there, you can see there's the remains of an Iron Age hill fort. You can see the earthworks. Just over there, an orange-tip butterfly, which I think we can almost almost guarantee that an orange-tip butterfly is not going to stop for long enough to even get a good look at it. Over here, dewberries, a species of bramble related to blackberries, quite common on chalk downland like this. There's another one there. Also a rose bush there growing out of it. So this is the dewberry, and you can tell it's a different thing from the bramble because it's got bristles rather than big thorns. And then that's a rose bush there, wild rose. So just to recap, so we walked along the ridge there, across the top, down that really steep bank there, that hill, all the way down into that bit of woodland there, along the bottom of the ridge, and then back up here. So this is what I came here for, and I was hoping we would find some more wood ear fungus. These are elder trees, and they are in quite aged condition. Lots of dead wood here, which is what the wood ear fungus really likes, but I'm not finding anything on them, so probably just not the right conditions. The fungus can be found at any time of year, but any time of year depending on conditions. So yeah, there's a little bit there. There we go. That's what I meant when I said you sometimes find it completely dried up on the tree. I won't take that bit, it's not really worth it. Yeah, there's a few little bits and pieces up there as well. You can see all the way down this trunk some dried up fruiting bodies. But I won't pick it unless I find it in significant abundance, really. It's really nice actually standing here. This whole area is just buzzing with small insects, butterflies, such as butterflies, beetles, various different flies, gnats, all that kind of thing. These are indications of healthy woodland. When you see lots of flying insects, it means that vegetation is not being cleared away, it's being allowed to rot down, and then it's providing food for the larvae of beetles and various other things, and all of those things are creating food for other wildlife. So all of these flies, even though they're living their own lives, they are likely food for birds, small reptiles, amphibians, other insects, spiders. I'm just looking over there, there's red campion over there. We'll have a closer look if we can, if Eva will let me. Red campion, which is not red. It's actually pink, but it was named red campion when there was no word for the colour pink in English. I've got a whole video about that, which I'll link in the video description. What else have we got? This is a species of sorrel here. So very recognisable by these red tinted flowers. And when we get down there, you can see these I've got stung by a nettle, arrowhead shaped leaves. And these leaves pleasantly acidic. Got a flavour a bit like green apples or lemons. Can't eat too much of that because it contains oxalic acid, which is what gives it the sourness. But it's very refreshing. Nice in salads, that one. Just as a kind of flavour accent in a salad. So another elder tree. I imagine if I scratched around on all of these elder trees, I would find enough fungi to make it worth picking. There's a fruiting body there, you can see light shining through it. That's one that's kind of semi-dried. Do you know what? I think I'm kind of happy enough today just to have had a nice walk and returned home with an empty basket. That doesn't bother me in the slightest. We've had a nice day, we've seen some interesting wildlife, and yeah, I think sometimes it's actually just as nice to return home with a head full of thoughts about wildflowers, lizards, butterflies, and so on, as it is to have had a basket full of mushrooms. So I think happy enough with the way things turned out. This is where I saw the lizard earlier. Of course it won't be here now. One day I'll find you some lizards. Oh, there's a wild rose there. Look at that. Oh, it smells fantastic. It's quite subtle, but very beautiful.
Thank you.
Year before last, in the autumn, so 18 months ago, you may recall I came to this piece of land and scattered many thousands of acorns. And I have confirmed last spring, that a few of them had grown, but we're here the following spring, so this is now 18 months since they were planted. This is their second spring. We're going to spot and see, well, there's one there, look, there's one of my oak trees. Isn't that amazing? But we're going to have a look and see if we can see any more of my oak trees. Now there is stuff going on this land. You can see a border fence over there. You can see there's something happening here. I'm not convinced that this is going to remain undeveloped. I've got a feeling that this land is going to be, well, the plans say it's not going to be developed, but we've been let down on that front before. So we'll just see anyway. But I'm just going to have a wander through here and see if I can spot any of my oak seedlings. My hope is that this would kind of establish as a little bit of woodland, and that would act as a slight deterrent to any development, but we'll just have to see about that. I don't know, but that's a very realistic hope. There's another one. I've just seen one there. In fact, I've seen several. So one there, it's grown 2 stalks. Another one there, another one right there, one over there, and another one there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the same area, which is good. Now, of course, they are just tiny little seedling oak trees. They're not even saplings yet, and their troubles have only just begun. It's very likely that a lot of those won't survive. They'll be grazed off by deer, trampled by humans. Here's another one here. Munched by insects, otherwise destroyed by weather or conditions or whatever. It's a hard life for a seedling tree, and not many of them will survive. But quite a few of them seem to have come up, which means the chances of maybe 1 or 2 of them just making it into adolescence and then maybe into adulthood is a possibility, as long as this land remains undeveloped. That's supposed to be the perimeter here of the existing development. This bit is supposed to remain green, but as I say, we've been kind of let down on that front before. Oh, there's another one. That one's done very well. How about that? Another of my tree babies, possibly 2 actually. Done very well. Most of what I planted were just English oaks, and they are native to this region. There's another one there. I scattered tens of thousands of acorns and planted some of them, pushed them into the ground. I suspect the ones that I pushed into the ground are the ones that will have done the best. But I scattered tens of thousands of acorns onto this ground. Some of those may have been eaten by squirrels, deer, jays, and so on. Some of them possibly might have been buried by squirrels. So squirrels might have collected them up as they found them, or jays might have found them, and then they may have cached them, and so they may have helped me plant some. There's another one right there. So I'm only really walking on the path because, well, for a couple of reasons. The grass is really wet. It rained heavily last night, and I don't really want to go traipsing through and get my trousers wet. But also, I don't want to accidentally tread on one of my little seedlings. If I was to go traipsing through the middle of this grass, the chances are I would end up crushing one of my little trees. So I'm only going to spot the ones I can see from the path, which might give me a slightly false impression, because the ones I planted next to the path, obviously I stuck my walking stick in here and planted the acorns, and I did that more by the path than I did out in the field. I did it everywhere, but mostly by the path. There's another one. That one's looking really good. So anyway, it looks like, judging by what we've seen alongside that path, it looks like maybe a few hundred of my acorns have sprouted and formed little seedlings, which is a good start and a good success rate. Now that's not one of mine there. That one's, you can see that's quite a bit thicker. There must be an oak tree nearby somewhere. That one I think probably got there on its own. I think we've probably got at least a few hundred oak seedlings on this bit of land that have been established. Maybe more than that, maybe as many as 1,000, who knows. but it's a good start. A lot of those trees won't make it, and that's how nature operates, unfortunately. That's why oak trees produce such a large number of acorns, because the survival rate is kind of low. The kind of good news is now that these trees have got their roots down, they've been here 18 months, so they are a little bit established. They've got their roots down into the ground. They've survived that long without being watered, and it was quite a dry summer last year. They've survived that long without being watered, so their chances of surviving now in terms of water requirements are reasonably good. And this bit here is just where they've dug in to put some drain works in here. There's a sewer that goes through here, and it goes down to there. That's the new school over there. That's called Deer Park because deer used to run there, but houses and schools and things are being built there now. That's the new bypass over there, and this bit is just drainage. So as far as I understand it, this bit here is supposed to all stay green, but we'll see about that, won't we? While we're here, I did happen to just notice there's another little oak seedling. Definitely one of mine, because it's right in the middle of the field, nowhere near to any overhanging trees or anything like that. So that is the seedling of one of my little oaks I planted right out here. Another one just right there. So why am I getting so excited about the fact that acorns I planted grew into oak trees? I guess it's the same as anything else. It's something that I did in the past with a vision about the future, and now that vision looks like it might just have a chance of coming true. So anyway, hopefully in years to come, maybe years after I'm no longer here to see it, there might be some oak trees here growing on this piece of land that I planted. I'm going to leave it there. We'll hopefully come back here and continue monitoring this bit of land, and hopefully we'll see those trees develop. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.